welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance. Today's guests are, for the first time, Brad Blair, and making another appearance, Jesse Leimkuehler. Brad is co-founder of the Michigan Paranormal Convention, co-founder of the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society, and he's also the co-host of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. Jesse is a friend and, of course, owner of one of my favorite places, the haunted Belvoir Winery and Inn in Liberty, Missouri, which we've covered a lot here. Together, Brad and Jesse have put together an exciting new event, and that is the Missouri Paracon. It's held from February 28th to March 1st, 2025 at Ameristar Casino Kansas City. It's my old college stomping grounds. I waited tables there for almost 5 years. The event is coming up very soon, and yours truly will be there. There are still tickets available, and you can get more details at MissouriParacon.com. Let's find out what we can expect when we get there. Pour the tea, y'all. Oh my gosh, y'all, I am here with Brad Blair and Jesse Leimkuehler. And Jesse's been on with us a couple of times before, and we've featured Belvoir quite a bit. But I have never, to my knowledge, I have never met Brad. And so I'm excited to meet Brad and learn a little bit about him and talk about both of these dudes' kind of individual adventures going on right now, but they've also joined together for something very exciting, kind of an inaugural event, which I'm happy about because when you're very severely landlocked here in Missouri, you don't always get some of the biggest paranormal events. And because of that, I haven't been to a ton of some of the bigger events. And so I'm super, super excited about this. And what I'm talking about is the inaugural Missouri Paracon. It's a first, and these two dudes are joining together on that. And I'm excited to talk about it. But first, I kind of want to talk to them individually and figure out what's going on with them. And we'll come back to Missouri Paracon, but stay tuned for that because there is lots to talk about there. So, Brad Blair.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It is nice to meet you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Patrick. Great to be here.
Welcome to the show also, Jesse. Sorry, I didn't welcome you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You just stay in your corner, Jesse. We'll get to you eventually.
So, you and your buddy Tim Ellis came together to start the Michigan Paranormal Convention, which I have had a goal of getting to for years. And then sometimes when I've tried to be a vendor, it's so popular. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you needed to call 10 years ago to be a vendor. So it's like, I'm never a vendor, but oh my gosh, such a popular show. And between that, you also have the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society with, again, Tim Ellis and another buddy, Steve LaPlante. And you also have the podcast Creaking Door Paranormal Radio with Tim Ellis, and you're all buddies from growing up. And so my question is, what in the world is going on in Michigan that the three, buddies growing up are all passionate about this stuff? Because I have nobody from growing up that I can talk about this kind of thing.
We kind of fed into each other growing up. The three of us have been close friends since the first grade. I won't say what year that was, but we were the kids that we just kind of got together on the playground and would tell ghost stories. And there was a little group of us, and we would go off and on the weekends have slumber parties, and we would be the ones over on one side of the room telling the ghost stories. And then you'd have kids on the other side that wanted absolutely nothing to do with us because they were terrified. And we just kind of kept feeding into each other. We'd get on our bikes, go to the local library, check out any book we could on ghosts, on Bigfoot, any type of cryptids, UFOs. I mean, anything weird and strange fell into our wheelhouse. So growing up, we hit that age where we got our driver's licenses. And the next thing you know, we're out in the country exploring abandoned houses, going through old graveyards with Ouija boards, and just the kind of that creepy thing that kept us on the fringe back then, before it was, mainstream popular and you had the TV shows out and all. We just kind of fueled that fascination each other. And then we hit college age. We all went off to different schools. And as fate would have it, we all ended up back in our hometown of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And we said, well, we're adults now. We can't go running through abandoned buildings without getting arrested. And, it's kind of frowned upon in general. We're all professionals in our various fields. So we came together and put together the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society. We are a state of Michigan nonprofit corporation. And through that, we've been able to work with different fundraisers, help out different philanthropies in the area on top of doing all of our paranormal work. And through the years, it's gotten to the point that has paid off and then some, not just for love of being able to help our community, but it's put us in a position in the area too that people don't hesitate if they think something strange is going on in their business or home. They feel pretty open to call us for the most part, because we do have a certain reputation in northern Michigan that, we're not a group, and I'm not putting anyone down by any means, but we're not a group that just popped up because they started watching television shows. We were doing this way before the reality binge started off. So we've got a little bit of history there, and we, to this day, to the chagrin of all of our wives and families, are still very much involved in the paranormal field.
I love it. So it sounds like trust and community are big with the projects that you're involved in. And, I would love to know also, with being involved in this community before the big boom of paranormal interest and paranormal groups and paranormal TV and all of that, which is what caught me. I've been very open about that.
Most people. Yeah.
Yeah. My paranormal team was, a lot of teams they'll be in denial. They say, well, no, I've never watched those shows. And I'm like, right. But, how have things changed? And I know you could probably talk about this for 3 hours. So this is a huge question.
Yeah.
But how have things changed? And what are some of maybe the good and bad?
There's definitely a double-edged sword there. And we can, trace it right back to Ghost Hunters premiering on Syfy. I can remember seeing the commercial for that come on and call Tim, and I said, you're not going to believe this. They're trying to do a TV reality show on ghost hunting. And we both kind of laughed and we said, that is going to suck so bad and it's never going to catch on, because what do? We sit in dark rooms, dark woods, and doing nothing, talking, trying to communicate for hours and hours. But through the magic of editing, they make it exciting. And by God, 20 years later, Ghost Hunters just finally wrapped. But that really started the boom. Prior to that, we knew of 4 other teams in the entire state of Michigan that were doing any type of paranormal research when we came together as the UPPRS. And we would approach people that had, this is before people were really looking outside of the occasional person that thought their house was haunted or had an issue going on. We would seek out places that had haunted reputations and say, hey, this is what we do. Would you be interested in having us come in and research your location? And 4 out of 5 people would say, hell no, we want nothing to do with that. And are you guys crazy? And you'd kind of get laughed off by some. But, we kept on. We were very persistent. That 5th place that would say, yeah, come on in. That'd be great. we got into some amazing historic locations, and our reputation grew from that. And then all of a sudden, ghost hunters hit, and everybody had a ghost, and everybody wanted us in. We were the Michigan Taps family team. So, I mean, they hit so heavy, people probably don't realize it nowadays, or a lot of people, but they got inundated with so many emails and calls of people wanting their place investigated. So they came up with this concept of the TAPS family, where every region would have a TAPS family team, and you had to send in all of this information proving people on your team were in good standing in the community. You didn't have ex-felons on the team. You didn't have, they were very particular about who they brought in. So once we were established as the Michigan team for TAPS, our emails started getting flooded. But through all those emails that came in that were forwarded from TAPS headquarters, I would say 95% of them, when we reached out and said, hey, this isn't Jason and Grant, this is Brad and Tim and Steve, you never heard anything back from them. I mean, all of these people wanted them to show up with their filming crew and come into their home, their business. But it definitely opened up the field. It wasn't quite as taboo once the shows caught on and people saw what we really did, and that, yes, there is somewhat a scientific basis to a lot of our method. So, it opened things up a lot more and made it more accepted, I feel. The other side of it is, at one point, after all of this was going on and we were doing some research on teams in Michigan, we came up with over 100 teams. This was I would say probably closer to 2007, 2008. And you would go to click on their websites or check out where they're at, and they had formed and disbanded the majority of them within a year to 2 years. And they realized that you don't just go out and have everything happen like it did on TV, because they weren't of the realization that most of these shows are filming in the same location for 3, 4, 5 days and editing it down to make it look like it was a one-night investigation. And all of a sudden, you've got everybody wanting to join these groups. But hey, guess what? After they've gone on 2 or 3 investigations that nothing happens, well, maybe I'm going to sit out the next investigation. And the next thing you know, they twiddle down. And it really, I guess, helped sort out the people that were actually serious about it and were interested in getting more information on it. I mean, growing up as kids, the only time you heard anything on the paranormal was the month of October. And that's when we would set our VCRs to record, Jenny Jones or Phil Donahue, because right before Halloween, you would have people like the Warrens on, you would have Hans Holzer on, Lloyd Auerbach. These people would come on, but that was the only time of year you heard anything about this field. So that was always exciting for us. Nowadays, of course, with streaming anytime, any day, but you could turn on TV and, if you've got a regular run of cable channels, at any given time, there's going to be some type of UFO or ghost or cryptid show on TV pretty much every day of the week now.
Yeah, and I'll throw in some quick sass here. Sometimes, I'll look at some of the teams that are out now, and I want to just ask them and say, has anybody on your team ever, read a book?
Yes, that's a legit question.
Like, is there any other research going on besides what you've seen? Anyway.
Yeah, so many people have not. And that's, it's great that these people are getting exposed to the field. And like I said, it's not quite as taboo of a subject anymore. You still get some strange looks from people. But yeah, I mean, go back to the pioneers in the field. I love reading. I'll still pick up some Harry Price, once in a while, and read the old school, see where this developed from. It didn't start with Jason and Grant. It didn't start with Zach and crew. This all goes back centuries, realistically. You can kind of pinpoint what we do now, though, a little more based on the spiritualist movement, at least for a start of modern paranormal research. So, but yeah, read the books. Go back and look at some of the old school documentaries. Don't just hop on what is out there, because let's face it, I've loved some of the TV shows through the years. It's been a while since I've watched much of any of them, but it's the magic of editing. They're there for ratings. They're not there to educate. people that wrote the books, the pioneers in the field, they went out and did the groundbreaking research. They went out and tried new methodology and got all of this rolling. Fall back on them. Don't fall back on network television, because they're there for entertainment. They're there for ratings. And it's great what they've done to expose people to the field. But at the end of the day, and most people on reality television shows, we've at this point in time met most people that have been on at least some of the more successful shows. They tell you the same thing. They're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. They're out there for a week at a time in a location just to get enough, hopefully valid evidence from a location that they can cut it down and make an interesting television program out of it.
Yeah, and we're mutual friends with all of those peeps, and so everything has its place.
Yes, absolutely.
Jesse, you've been on the show in the past, and so listeners should know you. But if not, you're the owner of the beautiful but haunted Belvoir Winery, which we've featured here quite a bit. And, speaking of the shows, there have been no shortage of paranormal TV productions jumping at the chance to get in to investigate Belvoir. And you, just this week, wrapped up another production, which is usually, all these productions are secret while they're happening. And it just wrapped up. And now you can talk about it. So tell us what just happened at Belvoir.
Yeah, so we just had a show out. It was called My Haunted Hometowns. It's a nice little twist, actually. It's a show that they come out and they're going over some of the things that have taken place at the winery. And so they do reenactments of many of those things. It's not so much a situation where they're coming in and investigating. They're more documenting the kind of stuff that happened at the place. The other nice thing about it is, in addition to coming in and doing reenactments in the location that they're at, they also take time and go out into the community, and they literally just walk around the community. In our case, they went on the Liberty Square, which is an old courthouse square with lots of stores around it and things like that. And they literally just go up and talk to people and say, hey, have you been to Belvoir? Have you experienced anything out there? And those kind of things. So it's a nice thing because they get out and talk to people in the community who honestly didn't know they were going to be on a show when they were walked up to with a camera. And they get to go out and also see some of the historic places in town, whether, we've got lots of Jesse James things in town and stuff like that. So they go out and experience those things too. So then it presents kind of a whole community view and not just, necessarily the haunted location itself.
Were there any experiences that the team had during production?
Yeah, it's actually funny you say that. There was a point in the interview. They were doing an interview of me and talking with me about some of the things going on and stuff like that. And literally there was nobody in the building except the film crew and I, and we were in the main bar of the winery. And all of a sudden we heard it. It was like a big bang and we didn't know what it was. And of course, if you're filming, you're super annoyed. You're like, oh, I was saying the most memorable, perfect thing at that very moment. And then there's a giant bang and, you're like, I've got to do it all over again all of a sudden, And so the producer went down the hallway and he looked and I looked around and we even checked the cameras and we couldn't find anything. And I came back to him and I think they actually caught it on camera. I looked at him and said, I don't know what the hell that was. So that may end up making the show. I don't know, because that was kind of unintended, but it ended up being perfect for what they were there to film for.
My favorite is when you post something, usually when you're like by yourself at Belvoir, just kind of hanging out and things are quiet, and you'll just post a video and be like, okay, so something just happened, or let me show you what we're hearing right now. And I'm like, oh, I'm tuning in right now. What's going on at Belvoir?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. And actually, some of those kind of things are what drives incredible social media traffic, which, it's great. It's wonderful for us, but it's not really intended. It's just one of those things where I'll just pop up and say, hey, I experienced this. Or the other thing that's really popular on our site is basically anytime we have someone who flees the inn in the middle of the night, because we do have overnight accommodations, and somebody leaves and sometimes you get the story, sometimes you just find out they aren't there in the morning, but those kind of things we always post on Facebook, and those are some of the most popular posts by far on our social media, because people just love to hear about how terrified, this old man and old woman were in room 9 or something like that. Somehow that's just wonderful.
And that's when all of a sudden you meet the opposite of the paranormal enthusiast world, where it's like, they forgot to maybe Google some of these things, and maybe they aren't so interested in that stuff.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about having a hotel. Well, it's an inn, but it's basically a hotel site on Expedia and Orbitz and things like that. People will go out and they're booking, and a lot of times they're just looking for good reviews, which we generally have, or a relatively good price. Which during the middle of the week, honestly, it's not that expensive to stay at our place, and so a lot of times people just book places and they have no clue. They don't, like you said, they don't go out and Google anything other than to see, is there a 4.8 out of 5 on the site? And that's about it. And after that, then they get in there and we have books that are in the room where people can write about their experiences or how bad the pillows were or whatever it might be. And so they come in and they write these things, and inevitably people come in and stay. They say, why is there a book sitting there on the desk? They open the book and they start reading and suddenly realize there's people talking about, specters sitting on the bed in the middle of the night or something like that. And they'll come down to the bar and they'll say, is this place haunted? And, well, yeah, a little bit.
And that's always a great thing to read right before you go to bed.
Right.
But in all seriousness, I mean, people should know that Belvoir is a beautiful and very comfortable, lovely place to stay. And it's one of my favorite places. So people should check that out. I want to bring something else up, Jesse. And it's something that I've heard you talk about at events. And I believe there was a time when you didn't believe in, we'll just say, ghosts, right?
Yep.
You didn't believe in this thing. And then I think that's changed. Tell us a little bit about that progression.
Yeah, I'd say when I first came on to Belvoir, there was rumors of hauntings and things like that. I was curious in paranormal, but I had never experienced anything. And I've always been of the point, if you haven't ever experienced something, it's perfectly all right to say, I don't believe that exists. And I tell people that when they come into the building, because there are skeptics that come to Belvoir, and the first thing they want to prove is, oh, well, there's nothing going on here. And that's not easily proven any more than it's easy to prove that, it's haunted. So, I came into it with a situation where I just didn't feel like I hadn't seen anything that would tell me that it exists. And then what happened was, of course, I started having experiences. It started with little things like footsteps or voices down the hallway. I would walk down the hallway and look around, and you're the only one in the building. You feel like an idiot because you walk down the hallway and look for something and it's not there, and you're like, well, maybe it was board squeaking, whatever it might be. And then over time you start experiencing more things, and then I finally saw an apparition, and that's a whole nother level of haunting. Even now, I've been there, oh gosh, almost 30 years now. I've only seen like about 5 apparitions. So, it's not something where, Aunt Margaret is just walking down the hallway at 11:30 at night at the same time, and that kind of thing. It's not that away. It's relatively rare. We still have a lot of voices, footsteps, that kind of stuff. And we have mutual friends too, named Chip Coffey, who's a well-known psychic, and we wish Chip the best. He's on the mend right now. He's been sick, but he's doing better. But Chip will tell you too, we're extremely good friends. I bring him in for events and stuff like that. And I will tell Chip even to this day, I say, I'm a little skeptic of what you're doing, but I will say that some of the stuff you do, I can't explain, And so I think it's healthy to be a little skeptical of those kind of things. And even Chip is understanding, say, yeah, it's pretty bleeping weird. I think there's definitely a level of skepticism that maybe is deserved, but at the same time, you start experiencing things and it's not easy to dismiss it at some point.
Yeah, give me a break, though. I've only seen 5 apparitions. Come on. That's like the big thing that people want, and some of us have never had that experience. But with my eyesight, I'm always like, it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just never going to happen.
Could be a relative.
I have told my ancestors and, loved ones in spirit, I'm like, girl, it's just not going to happen visually. So you better try to talk or knock or something. So Missouri Paracon, organizing large events is something Brad has a lot of experience with. And Jesse, you've had your fair share of events at Belvoir, but what brought you together and for this adventure?
Jesse's a glutton for punishment.
Oh. It's a relatively good story. What happened is that as part of me having a paranormal location, I started going up to Michigan. Actually, Amy Bernie, one of our friends, told me, hey, you should come up and you should experience this place. There's lots of other people up there. And so I went up more as a business kind of thing where I wanted to go up and meet people and maybe have more events and that kind of stuff. And I ended up meeting Brad because he obviously ran Michigan Paracon and started getting more involved in that community. And then after a period of time, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, whatever it might be, I thought about, well, Brad has this big event that's up there in Michigan and in the late summer. And I thought, you know what, we could do something maybe that's in early winter. And so I called Brad one day and I said, Brad, I said, hear me out. I said, this is crazy, but I think maybe it's a good idea. So let's see how it goes. And so I told him, I said, I think we can do another conference similar to, the level of Michigan Paracon, and we can put it at the opposite end of the calendar in, an early spring kind of time frame where they're kind of 6 months apart. And so we decided, okay, let's just go for it. And so we partnered up together. And now at that time, they were still doing Michigan Paracon, and then we started promoting it. And then Brad decided, for a multitude of reasons, that they weren't going to do Michigan Paracon anymore after last year. And so suddenly, we became the main focus of that. And so Brad was nice enough to let us promote the event up there some in Michigan, which was great. And so now, we're just working through and we've got over 25 personalities invited. We've got 2 bands. We've got 2 concerts that are happening. About 40 vendors are on board right now. So a lot's happening. We've sold a lot of tickets too, surprisingly. I was worried, but they're starting to trickle in actually pretty well. So we're pretty excited about that. And we're hoping to create a similar situation to what he had up at Michigan Paracon. If we do that, we're doing very well.
Yeah, well, geographically, to me, it really makes sense, to have some distance between some of the other events and kind of be in the middle. But also, like you were saying, have enough distance with time too. I mean, so many of the paranormal names and paranormal celebs and just people interested in the paranormal are busy as hell in October. Yeah. And it's like everything is in October. And to me, it's such a great decision because it seems like you could get way more involvement with that, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah. And the thing with weekend long conferences in October, even in mid to late September, and I found this out through experience working 15 years at Michigan Paracon, a lot of the celebrities and presenters that we bring in don't necessarily like doing long conferences on those weekends because it's prime time. They can charge a little bit more. And they do because they're in more demand at the time. And all of a sudden, if you're locked up with a day of travel on each side in a full weekend somewhere, those are days where, especially a lot of the guys on the East Coast, people out there that I know that do presentations at libraries, at colleges, night after night in those days, they can be making some decent bank by booking every night and still being within a 2-hour drive of their home. So now you're popping out 3 to 4 days out of that schedule. They need to look at what they have to charge to make it work, for one thing, which runs your budget up heavily. But no, they appreciate having it a little bit off time from what we call spooky season.
Yeah. And for people who don't already have tickets,
buy your tickets now. MissouriParacon.com. Fun for the whole family.
Well, yeah, tell us about what are the prices and all of that. Oh, and we haven't set a date yet. I haven't said when the dates are.
The event itself is February 28th and March 1st are the 2 days for it. So we also actually do have an add-on paranormal investigation at the winery as well. That's Thursday night. So there's actually some additional event the night before. If you have tickets, you can actually buy onto those additional events. The tickets run, it's like $175 for the standard ones, and then we have a higher priced VIP ticket. And actually, right now, through the end of the year, we have a coupon code. It's Christmas 15. If they put Christmas 15 into the ticket purchasing site, they can get 15% off the general admission tickets through the end of the year. So it's a good deal there, too. We'll have 2 days. We have obviously 6 to 7 people talking each day as well. So we're going to have talks going on throughout the day. We'll have the vendor showcase, where they can buy all kinds of things, some paranormal related, some not. And then, of course, all the personalities will be in the vendor showcase as well to sign autographs, sell their wares, their books, their shirts, and all that kind of stuff. And they're easily accessible. I mean, it's amazing when you come in. The first time I went to Michigan Paracon, it was amazing how you could just walk up to a table and say hi to all the different people. And you're shocked to find out, oh, they're normal people just like me. And they're actually very kind. So it's a fun experience to get that close to those people and get to have conversations with them. And they appreciate you coming out just as much.
Yeah. And just to add on to that a little bit too, because that was a question that was always brought up to us doing Michigan was, well, when is so-and-so, when's Amy Bruni going to be at her table? Or When is, whoever the big celebrities are that are there that they want to know, because they're used to going to some of these other conferences that people might just make an appearance and then be gone. With this event, they're there for the entire weekend. They're staying at the casino along with us. They're going to be mulling around. You can have drinks with them at night. You can, please don't pester them if they're gaming in the casino, because that happens as well, believe it or not, once in a while. But yeah, I mean, they're very interactive. Let's face it, most of them are just everyday people that got the lucky break of getting picked up for a television show with this wonderful reality genre that's out there. And, they're thrilled to be there. They love meeting the fans, and they love a chance to sit and interact as well. So it's not like it's a big Comic-Con where they're standoffish and you're paying $150 for an autograph and a picture. Yes, there's a fee. That's how a lot of these people make their money and how they can do shows like this. And we can help keep our costs down a little bit because they don't have to charge us as much, because they are selling pictures, autographs, merchandise, T-shirts, whatever it may be. And you'll have the chance to sit and visit, though, and talk with people. It's not like it is a place that you're going to wait for 2 hours to meet anybody.
And the caliber of guests you're going to have there is, just like it was in Michigan Paracon. You look at the names and they're really some cool names. It's like they're all going to be there, including, you've got all these paranormal celebs. And then, yes, listeners, just nerdy old me will be at a vendor table in the corner somewhere.
And you're going to be on the investigation as well, correct?
I am. I'm going to be. You invited me. And so I don't know how I always make it back to that damn bunker, but I, in the bunker at Belvoir. No, I love the bunker.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah. But I'm super, super excited. It's been a while since I've sat with my table and selling free bookmarks and, business cards and stickers.
Yeah. And the other thing too, we talked about there's roughly about 25 celebrities. And then also there's the 40 vendors or so. So many of these vendors, we kind of will intermix it. So there'll be a celebrity and then two vendors and then a celebrity. So we kind of mix it in where everybody's constantly moving through everywhere. So, these vendors are likely going to be sitting right next to the celebrities. The vendors are likely going to have their lines right in front of their table, which is actually great because you have a captive audience all of a sudden. Those people are waiting 5-10 minutes while they get to the celebrity. And so during that time, they're looking down at your charms, at your books, at all those kind of things. And usually you sell stuff. I mean, that's the great part about it, is that everybody's intermixed. We're not putting all the celebrities in one place and the vendors in the other. We're mixing them all together so that everybody gets to be seen and heard. And it's a unique situation in that regard.
And if you come by my table, just be prepared to take a selfie, and it's free. Just come and take a selfie and we will post it everywhere. So what else? I know there's some highlights, some, big features. What are some things that we might not be expecting? What can we expect at Missouri Paracon?
Well, Jesse mentioned the ghost hunt for Thursday night leading into the weekend. But on top of that, we've got gallery readings going on that you can add on to your ticket price. We've got workshops. I mean, it's very interactive. And that's the way we like to keep this. Make sure that if you're coming out, you're not just off to the sidelines watching people present and then taking off and, going back to your room, whatever. We want people to interact in as many ways as possible to get the learning experience, especially for those of us that are involved in the paranormal field. It doesn't hurt to go and look at somebody else's point of view perspective on things. Some of the workshops that we try to put out there, and like I said, too, the psychic gallery readings. Jesse mentioned before about Chip, always being skeptical. In our early days investigating, we loved having somebody that claimed to have psychic abilities with us. And then we kind of started to fold a little bit towards the TV crowd and say, well, we can't really bring a psychic in. That's not something you can prove. And now we're like back at the other end of that bell curve. And I love sitting in on psychic readings. I know Sarah Lemos is doing one. She's in the lineup. She'll be doing a gallery reading. And just to see the attendees' response to what they're bringing up, because I always go into it very, very skeptically. And yeah, I do believe that there are people out there that are just trying to make a quick buck on it. But then I see people like Chip, I see people like Sarah that come up with things that are so specific I've actually done cold readings before on a couple of people sitting in a bar, from time to time. And there's just, I know the spots to look for and where to hit and the generalities that most people have that they don't even realize. But then when you see somebody and you say, well, there's a man that's pointing to his hand and saying you would know him by that. This is an exact experience that I witnessed Chip read someone. And a guy that says, oh, well, my dad shot his thumb off accidentally when he was young. And he said, yep, it's an older man. And he was so exact, so precise that I have a hard time picking that apart. I try, and I'll always try. But yeah, you've got some people that you sit back and say, especially after working with so many over the years, I can't explain how they would know that unless they actually knew the person in their background. And that wasn't the case on multiple occasions with some of the better ones that we've worked with through the years, Chip being one of them, Sarah being another one.
Well, it's February 28th to March 1st. I'm on the St. Louis side. I don't get back to Kansas City all that often. And this is going to be at Ameristar, where I actually worked all through undergrad.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be like old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
So we can ask you then, Patrick, does Ameristar have any ghost stories associated with the property?
Well, here's the thing. When I worked there, I was not a paranormal nerd. I did not, get hit by all of this until like 2008 or around there. And so the paranormal wasn't on my radar at all. When I worked there, the place was fairly new. And so unless we have some haunted grounds.
One of the best experiences that we had, and it goes all the way back to Michigan Paracon 1 in 2010, we had a family of 3 women, mother, daughter, granddaughter, check out in the middle of the night because they woke up in one of the hotel rooms at Creaking Casino here in the Sioux and said there was an emaciated-looking old man standing over their bed. And they checked out. They stayed for Paracon for the weekend, but they moved and stayed at a different hotel. And after that, we talked to a couple of the managers at the casino, and they said, oh, yeah, that happens from time to time. We'd never heard such a thing, but over the years, we've had other people have experiences. It became a running joke with the staff at the casino that every year when we brought all of these people in, something strange happened. There were malfunctions and mechanical issues and light and sound, just different things that have never happened and didn't happen since would always happen Paracon weekend. So I'm anxious to see coming up for Missouri Paracon, if we bring that same energy in, what might happen at Ameristar.
Well, I would say too that I would lump casinos in with that group of prisons, schools, hotels, that just collect energy, and casinos have a lot of interesting, some, good or bad, lots of stuff going on and people coming in and out with their problems. And
Absolutely.
I imagine some of our psychic medium friends are going to go in there and be like, I don't know what's going on here, but
it will be interesting to see if that same energy carries over, because like I said, every year something would happen and we would get called by casino management afterwards. Sometimes we didn't even know these things were going on. They were all happening in the background. And then we'd get calls the week after and saying, well, this was kind of odd, but this whole lighting schematic changed on its own. And we had this and there's always something every year that we hosted that event there. So I'm really excited to see if the same will happen when we bring that energy into Ameristar at the end of this winter.
Absolutely. So again, it's February 28th to March 1st. So we do have tickets available, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. MissouriParacon.com.
And our email for that is MissouriParacon@gmail.com if you'd like to reach out in an email. But the website looks great. You can see some of the names that are going to be there. And before we go, I have to ask, Brad, what's up with this alien invasion I heard about on your podcast?
So there was a call. It was made years ago, apparently. Somebody that had predicted with bizarre accuracy some different events that had happened that said it was something to do with the election. And X amount of days afterwards, there was supposed to be an alien invasion, which maybe didn't happen. But if you're following the news and see all of these drones and objects in the skies over New Jersey, maybe it did. Stay tuned.
I have to say, I don't tend to get into the UFOs, alien stuff, but I've been seeing all this drone stuff lately, and I'm like, oh, what's going on?
That's another rabbit hole we could go down. But
Yes.
it's definitely interesting. I would, my gut tells me it will be explained away sometime soon. And I just have a hard time believing if aliens did come down and wanted to start observing how society works, that they would just choose the eastern seaboard of the U.S. and pretty much leave the rest of the world alone. But I've been wrong before.
But maybe aliens have Christmas too, and they just got drones, and they're jumping in their drones. And
if you've seen some of the pictures, they've got nice light effects on them. They fit right in with the Christmas decor, so it could be.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, either of you, Jesse, do you have any final thoughts for us here today?
I will give people one hint because I learned this after going to Michigan Paracon, and I have a feeling it will happen at Missouri Paracon as well. But to all the people who are in attendance, there's a schedule out there that has the talks. It also has the concerts. What people don't realize unless they hang around long enough to find out is that many of these people, especially the personalities, they want to let it all hang out afterwards because they're tired of working, of signing, and all those kind of things. So once the concert is over, the bars in the main area close, but the casino bar, my understanding is after 11 p.m. or midnight, somewhere in there, the casino bar is the only one open. And I will tell people after midnight, you should go into the casino. You should go to the main bar in the casino, and you will be shocked at how many people are in there. And, after a few drinks, you'd be also shocked how much they'll talk to you because it's an absolute great time. I mean, when I was up in Michigan, I would always buy everybody a couple drinks and we'd have a wonderful time and become excellent friends and learn far too many things about people like Dustin Pari and stuff like that. You'd suddenly get them a little libated and suddenly they'd tell you everything they know. So I would encourage them to, hang around afterwards if you have time late into the night, because you'd be amazed at how much access you have to some of those people. And like Brad said, obviously be kind. They are, they can sometimes get a little overwhelmed, but as long as you're kind and not overwhelming to them, that they're often very nice and will hang out with you. So it's a cool opportunity.
Right. A lot of the time, the behind the scenes activities at these events are as much fun as what's going on during the day in the theater, in the vendor rooms. So yeah, we definitely encourage people, if you haven't gotten a room, Jesse, are there still rooms available at Ameristar?
There are, yeah. And once they get the tickets, they can contact me for the code and stuff like that.
Yeah. If you're looking around and shopping for hotel rooms, stay at the venue. You will have so much more fun. If it's a possibility for you, grab a room there and hang out with us for the weekend. It's going to be a blast.
I'm sitting here thinking, holy did I get a room today? I don't even.
You already have a room.
I have a room?
Yes, you already have a room.
Okay. Woo! Thank you, Jesus. Sometimes I have brain farts on those things, and then all of a sudden 2 weeks ahead, you're like, oh, wait, what did I? Especially if you book it like a year in advance, you don't remember booking it at all. So, Brad, I don't want to assume those were your final thoughts. Do you have any other final thoughts?
I have no thoughts today. It's winter time in northern Michigan, and I'm as far north as you get. I'm on the Canadian border, so I've been doing a lot of shoveling lately and a lot of skidding down the highway on the way to help Santa out and get that Christmas shopping done. Thank you for having us on, though, Patrick. It's very nice to meet you, and look forward to meeting you in person and maybe throwing back a beverage or two at Ameristar come late February.
Absolutely. And I don't have many adult beverages that often. So if I have a couple, then you're likely to get a few stories. I'll just say that. So MissouriParacon.com. And then for Jesse, if you want to check out Belvoir Winery, that is BelvoirWinery.com. And I'll have all these links in the show notes. You can go there if you don't know how to spell it. And then also, if I didn't say it already, Brad has the Creaking Door Paranormal podcast. And that's actually at creakingdoorparanormal.transistor.fm.
It's also on all of the podcast platforms out there. You can find it for the most part.
But that is a deliciously long URL. But
it is. bridgefm.net is the studio that we go through, and you can grab a link there, and it's much easier to remember.
Yes. Well, and I am new to that show as well, so I'll be checking that out. And then also Brad has youpernaturalhaunts.com, and that's youper like YOO pernatural haunts.
Yes.
.com.
Yes.
You guys rock so much, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Wasn't that great? I look forward to it. And you should let me know if you'll be there. Email me at patrick@bigseance.com. And speaking of reaching out to me, before I go, here's a heads up. I wanted to make you aware that I no longer have the hotline that some of you may have called in the past. I do, however, still have the SpeakPipe, which you can still go to by visiting speakpipe.com/bigseance. So don't call, use the SpeakPipe instead. And now everyone will rush off to leave me some voice feedback. I just know it. Peace out, y'all. Happy New Year. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. And you can continue the discussion and hang out with a great community of paranerds by joining us in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. Want to hear your voice in a future episode? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.